if we end up spoiling it, what will happen? There is a state which I will not name, and I'm sure you know it, many of you, who created a new urban property record system ordinance with the help of so-called experts. There are enough experts in this country again. Everybody is an expert. So that expert created, and without any thinking, an ordinance was created which thankfully was allowed to lapse later. But there is, to bring this framework without thinking and very fast and early doing something, that problem exists, and it may lead to irreparable damage if we don't create property records in a proper manner. The need of the hour is to therefore put some cap on unrealistic expectations of things like torrent system. I don't know how many of you are perhaps aware of what is called torrent system, but that is something, ultimate. Everybody desires to have ultimate things, but then there are limitations of the system. And torrents type of system, and then my view is that we should create a simple system, and then we should piggyback on our success and then try to achieve better things. Put process reforms in place, and I'll talk something in the next 2-3 slides. And then understand and use appropriately the technology without getting guided by the... Of course, need to use the private sector expertise. We need to build their private sector expertise by starting new courses. But we have to understand that we cannot outsource. I mean, all of us talk that governance cannot be outsourced, but are we really kind of keeping this in mind? There are many states where land records computerization has been given to a companies without understanding what they need to do and what we need to do. What is very important in urban property records is there has to be coordination between various authorities who maintain relevant data. For example, Revenue Department, who perhaps would maintain urban property records because there's a regulatory work to do. Municipalities, because they will have khata records. Urban development authorities, because they create new development blocks. Sub-registrars, because they maintain the registration data. Banks, because they give loans. Courts, because they pass orders. And the private sector, who will perhaps do some work for you. Need of the hour is also to create a framework to ensure essential use of this data by all the stakeholders. It is very important that what data you create is being used by everybody. I mean, it looks very silly, but if those who have worked in land records area will realize that if your data is not used by banks and by sub-registrar, as you know, dates back to 1908 registration law, and they say we are not bound by anybody. You go to hell, we will register whatever we want to register. And therefore, if they don't keep track of what is there in the record, then of course you will register anything. And how do we therefore change them without going through the difficult process of modifying the central law? How does state amendments can come into different laws so that you tie them down? And then of course courts should use your records, building permissions, property taxes, all these people should use your records so that your records are automatically updated, and that there is a faith in the people. Such framework would ensure that the data is always updated. Citizens accept, local bodies tax revenue increase, the building plan repository increases. I remember when there was a Bombay incident, Mr. Nandan Nilekani at that time was asked that what should be done, and he said that we should have urban bhumi in Karnataka, and we should have all the building plan repositories in that as a part of the process. When you give building plan, you deposit it there so that whenever you require, at any point of time, you can dig the building plan from there so that you can take contingent actions which are required. Obviously, put an appropriate user charges regime in place for self-sustenance of the program so that program does not depend upon anybody. Certain issues which would be faced, and I have 2-3 last slides. One is that when you will do this work as we are doing, and I'll explain to you 2 slides, that when you will start doing this, you will locate lots of government land encroachments on which government land, on which properties have been created, and then the conflict of interest will start, and then of course the politicians will have their own share of problems, and you will also find lots of illegal properties properties which are created in green sector where they should not have created. And then also citizens will be indifferent, and rightly so, because they are so cynical with half-baked programs of government that they have no faith on you that what you are now doing will bring any value to them. And I think they're justified, but this is the way we work. Last two slides. In Karnataka, we have done this pilot of, we have created a post exclusively for urban property records. And I'm very excited that government has understood that we should have an exclusive senior secretary level officer dealing with urban properties. I remember in 2003, when government of Karnataka created the post of secretary e-governance. Till today, in no other state in country, you have a post of secretary e-governance, which was created as a part of administrative reforms. And all I'm saying is that, look, you were able to understand that e-governance is a part of administrative reforms, and now they have created a post of secretary UPOR, urban property ownership records in revenue department, and a big unit has been created in the survey department just for urban property ownership records. 5 towns have been taken, and I'm so happy that the government has agreed to a regime of user charges, and the record cost will be 400 rupees. Not very easy. At the state government level, you can't have user charges, and therefore agreeing to 400 or 500 or 600 rupees perhaps indicate that government is wanting or willing to take chances of putting user charges. It is on a PPP basis, and a law has been passed. If you read this year's budget, it also says that it shall be compulsorily used for all the transactions. Now, this is very important, that before you created the system, you have very boldly said that we shall use it for bank loans, we will use it for sub-registrar, we will use it for municipality, building permissions, so that these systems make sense. And the pilot is under implementation, and survey has been completed, inquiry is going on, and it is expected that during this year, you will have these 5 towns going live with full electronic data, and I think it will be very exciting. And then, of course, they want to take more towns. They are forcing Bangalore on me, and I find myself highly incapable of handling Bangalore at this point of a time, because nothing feels like failure. And therefore, we need to first learn from small towns and then understand. Just last slide on key features of this pilot. It is a PPP model with user charges. Citizens would get their records containing accurate dimensions. They will have map of their properties with coordinate system. That would mean that they are no more at the mercies of the government servants for relocating their property on the ground. They can use a DGPS or a GPS system as the systems become more accurate and go and locate your property yourself without really being dependent upon these corrupt surveyors who will take money and locate wherever you want. Depending upon how much money you give, they can locate your property, because they are all Brahmas. I always used to say these people are Brahmas. They can create properties, they can destroy properties, they can do anything. They can do anything. They got me transferred last year. You should read some very exciting news about me on the Google. You will see that I was about to kill a driver. I made him eat pesticide and things like this. I mean, this is all very natural, because they are so powerful that they can create that environment where such changes do not really take place into the system. The PPP vendor just does the measurement and serves notices and collects property related documents from citizens, whereas government staff does the actual property identification and does the inquiry. So it's not that governance has been outsourced, it is a menial work in the process which has been outsourced. No transactions will be allowed by citizen without the property record. Government will be able to identify all the encroachments on the government land. There's a huge coordination between the departments. The collector is the head of the organization at the district level. He is getting these property records created. Local bodies would necessarily use this data for collection of taxes and building plan permission. And there would be a central database with a PKI enabled application. And I think next year, if Ravi invites us, we'll be able to tell you what happened on this project. So I just thought I'll keep you informed on what is happening in Karnataka. Thank you.